I stood outside the probate lawyer's office in downtown Vancouver, watching my younger brother David check his Rolex for the third time. He hadn't looked at me once since we sat down in the waiting room. 20 years of silence, and the first words he'd said to me were through his lawyer's letterhead. The receptionist called us in. David's lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman from one of those big firms on Burrard Street, placed a thick folder on the conference table. My own lawyer, old Tom Fletcher, who'd handled Dad's business for 30 years, sat beside me with a weathered briefcase that had seen better days. "Mr. Morrison," David's lawyer began, and I wasn't sure which one of us she meant until she looked at my brother. "Before we proceed with the estate division, I need to ask, are you aware of the correspondence?" David's face went blank. "What correspondence?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out a bundle of envelopes, bound with a rubber band that had gone brittle with age. 23 letters. I'd counted them more times than I cared to admit. Tom Fletcher cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should start from the beginning. But that's not where this story begins, is it? It begins on an October morning in 2004, when David threw his duffel bag into the back of a taxi and told Mom he'd see her at Christmas. He was 18, I was 24. He had a scholarship to McGill, a whole future ahead of him in Montreal. I had Dad's old pickup truck and 200 acres of land that needed harvesting before the frost hit. "You'll visit, right, Robbie?" Mom had asked me that night, standing at the kitchen window long after the taxi's taillights had disappeared down the highway. "Of course, Mom." "No, I mean David. You'll make sure he visits?" I should have known then. The way she clutched her coffee mug, the tremor in her voice. Mom always knew things before the rest of us caught on. David didn't come home for Christmas that year. Or the next. The excuses started reasonable enough. Exams, a research opportunity, an internship that couldn't be missed. By year 3, the phone calls got shorter. By year 5, they'd stopped altogether. Dad didn't talk about it much. He'd just work longer hours in the barn, fixing things that didn't need fixing. Mom wrote letters every Sunday after church. Long letters about the farm, about the neighbors, about the new foal old Bessie had birthed. She'd read them out loud to me sometimes, asking if she should mention this or that. "Do you think he wants to hear about the Johnsons' divorce?" "Mom, I don't think David reads them." "Of course he does. He's just busy." But I'd seen the stack of envelopes in her desk drawer, the ones that came back marked "Return to sender" or "No longer at this address." She kept writing anyway, kept hoping. I was 32 when Dad had his first stroke. We were bringing in the hay, late August heat that made your shirt stick to your back. He just stopped mid-sentence and sat down hard on a bale. Didn't say a word, just looked at me with this confused expression, like he couldn't remember my name. The hospital in Kamloops kept him for a week. I called David's last known number 17 times, left messages, sent emails, finally reached him on the 18th try. "Rob, Jesus, it's been a while." Dad had a stroke. Silence on the line. Then, "Is he okay?" "He's alive. But he's not the same. Can you come home?" "I'm in the middle of a major project. I'm a consultant now, did I tell you? I can't just drop everything. Your father nearly died. But he didn't, right? Look, I'll send some money if you need it for medical bills." He never sent the money. Dad came home, dragging his left leg, speech slurred. We hired a nurse to come 3 times a week, but most of the care fell to me and Mom. I learned how to help him in and out of bed, how to tell when he was frustrated because the words wouldn't come out right, how to pretend I didn't see Mom crying in the bathroom after particularly hard days. The farm work didn't stop. Cows still needed milking at 5 a.m. Fences still needed mending. Equipment still broke down at the worst possible times. I hired a kid from town to help with the heavy lifting, but it wasn't the same as having a partner. Wasn't the same as having a brother. Mom wrote fewer letters after Dad's stroke. When she did write, they were shorter. Less news about the farm, more questions David never answered. "Are you eating well? Do you have someone special in your life? When can we see you?" I found her at the kitchen table one Sunday, pen in hand, paper blank. "Can't think of what to say," she admitted. "I don't even know what his life looks like anymore." "Then maybe it's time to stop writing. He's my son, Robert." "I'm your son too, Mom. I'm right here." She patted my hand. I know, sweetheart, I know. 3 years after Dad's first stroke, he had a second one. This time, we knew what it meant. The doctor in Kamloops was gentle but clear. Weeks, maybe a month or two, if we were lucky. I called David again. This time, I didn't leave a message. I texted instead, Dad is dying. If you want to say goodbye, you need to come now. He read it. I could see the blue check marks on WhatsApp, but he didn't reply. Dad lasted 6 weeks. Toward the end, he couldn't speak at all, but sometimes he'd look toward the door like he was expecting someone. Mom would squeeze his hand and say, "He'll come, honey. David will come." But David didn't come. Not for the bedside vigil, not for the funeral, not for the reception where the whole community of Merritt turned out to remember Bill Morrison, the man who'd helped every neighbor with their harvest, who'd donated to every school fundraiser, who'd coached Little League for 20 years. "Where's your brother?" people asked. "Couldn't make it," I'd say, and they'd nod like they understood, but their eyes said they didn't. After everyone left, after the casseroles were put away and the sympathy cards were piled on the counter, I found Mom in Dad's workshop. She was holding one of his old flannel shirts, the red one he'd worn every Sunday. "He waited," she said. "Your father waited for David to come home." "I know, Mom. All those years. He just wanted to see his boy one more time." I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to fill the hole David had left in our family, growing bigger every year he stayed away. Mom got quieter after that. She'd still do her routines, her gardening and her church ladies group, but something had gone out of her. The doctor called it depression. I called it a broken heart. She lasted 4 more years. 4 years of me trying to be enough, trying to fill the space 2 sons should have occupied. 4 years of her writing letters she never sent, keeping them in her desk drawer alongside all the returned ones. 4 years of her saying, "Maybe next Christmas," whenever someone asked about David. 4 years of me watching her fade away, piece by piece, until the morning I found her in her chair by the window, the one where she used to watch for David's taxi to come back up the drive. The coroner said it was a heart attack. I knew better. I called David one last time. "Mom's gone." "What happened?" Her heart gave out. "The funeral's on Saturday." "Rob, I can't. I'm in Singapore for work." "Then send flowers. Send a card. Send something so people know you exist. Don't be dramatic. I'll transfer money for the funeral expenses." He did transfer money. $5,000, like that somehow made up for 15 years of absence. I donated it to the palliative care unit in Mom's name. The will reading was straightforward. Mom and Dad had updated it 2 years before Mom passed. Everything to me. The farm, the house, their savings, the life insurance. It wasn't a fortune by Vancouver standards, but in Merritt, 200 acres of prime land was worth something. The lawyer estimated the estate at $2.5 million, mostly in land value. They were very clear, Tom Fletcher had told me. They wanted everything to go to you, said you'd earned it. I thought that was the end of it. I'd sell some of the land, keep the house and maybe 50 acres, live out my days the way Dad had wanted. Maybe finally take that trip to Scotland I'd been putting off for 30 years. Then David's lawyer's letter arrived, contesting the will, claiming undue influence, demanding his 50% as the surviving child. That's how I ended up in that conference room in Vancouver, watching my brother fidget while his lawyer talked about equitable distribution and intestate succession laws. The fact is, David's lawyer was saying, regardless of the will's contents, British Columbia law recognizes the rights of all children. My client was estranged, yes, but that doesn't forfeit his legal rights to his parents' estate. Tom Fletcher let her finish. Then he nodded to me. I laid the bundle of letters on the table. These are from Mom and Dad. 23 letters over 15 years. Every one returned or unanswered. David's lawyer barely glanced at them. Correspondence doesn't negate legal rights, Mr. Morrison. No, Tom agreed. But perhaps this does. He pulled out a document from his briefcase. An email, dated March 2019, from David Morrison to his mother, Eleanor Morrison. David went very still. Tom read aloud. Mom, I've told you before. I don't want anything from that place. I've built my own life here. Stop trying to drag me back to that dead-end town. I'm not coming back for Dad. I'm not coming back for you. And when you're both gone, I don't want a single thing from that farm. Give it all to Rob. He's the one who gave up his life for it." The silence in that room was absolute. "Mr. Morrison," Tom continued, addressing David now, "your parents took you at your word. They gave everything to your brother, as you instructed. And now you want to contest that decision?" David's lawyer was scanning the email, her professional composure cracking. "My client was young when he wrote this. Under stress. He was 41 years old," I said quietly. It was the first time I'd spoken directly to David in 20 years. "You were 41, David, not some kid who didn't know what he was saying." David finally looked at me. "You don't understand the pressure I was under. The demands of my career. Dad waited for you. He had 2 strokes, and he waited for you to come home. I sent money. He didn't want your money. He wanted his son. I couldn't just drop everything. You dropped us. You dropped us 20 years ago and never looked back. My voice wasn't loud, but it filled the room anyway. And now you want to come back for the money? It's my inheritance, too." "No." I pulled out another document. "This is the caregiving log. 6 years of round-the-clock care for Dad. 3 years for Mom. Medical appointments, medication schedules, physical therapy sessions, all of it documented." Tom added, "And this is the financial record. Robert Morrison paid for all of it out of pocket. Your parents' savings went to their care, as it should have. What's left is what Robert built through his own labor, maintaining and improving the property value." I wasn't done. I pulled out a folder I'd put together over the last month since David's lawyer had first contacted me. These are statements from everyone in Merritt who knew our parents. Neighbors, church friends, the doctor, the nurses. Every single one of them will testify that I was the only family our parents had. That you abandoned them. That's not fair. Fair? The word came out harder than I intended. You want to talk about fair? I gave up 30 years. I gave up career opportunities, relationships, my own life. I was 38 when Dad had his first stroke. I'd been seeing someone in Kelowna. Had to break it off because I couldn't leave the farm. Couldn't leave Mom and Dad. I stood up, placed one more document on the table. "This is Mom's last letter to you. She never sent it. I found it in her desk after she died." David reached for it with shaking hands. "She wrote it a week before she passed," I said. "You can read it if you want, or I can tell you what it says. She forgave you. She forgave you for everything, because that's the kind of person she was. She said she understood you had your own life, your own path." David's eyes were wet as he scanned the letter. "But here's the thing, David. Mom and Dad might have forgiven you. They might have understood. But they also made a choice. They chose to leave everything to the son who stayed. And I'm not going to let you dishonor that choice by claiming you deserve something you explicitly rejected." David's lawyer started to speak, but he held up a hand to stop her. "The email," he said. "You have the original?" "Backed up in 3 places," Tom confirmed, along with screenshots showing the read receipts, the timestamp, everything. David stared at the letter in his hands for a long moment. Then he looked at his lawyer. "Drop it, Mr. Morrison. If we go to court?" I said, "Drop it." He stood up, carefully folded the letter, and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "That's the last thing she wrote to me, isn't it? The last thing she'll ever say to me?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I don't want anything from the estate. Tell the court I'm withdrawing the contestation." His lawyer protested, but David was already heading for the door. He paused with his hand on the handle, back still to me. "For what it's worth, Rob, I'm sorry." "Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught?" He didn't answer, just walked out, and I listened to his expensive shoes clicking down the hallway until I couldn't hear them anymore. Tom Fletcher started gathering his documents. "Well, that went better than expected." I was still staring at the closed door. He took the letter. "Is that a problem?" "No." She'd have wanted him to have it. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "Is it really over? Once he signs the withdrawal, and we file it with the court, yes. The estate is yours, free and clear." I drove back to Merritt that evening, watching the sun set over the mountains. The farm looked different when I pulled up the drive. Same house, same barn, same fence posts that needed replacing every spring. but it felt lighter somehow, like I could finally breathe. I sold 100 acres to a young family who wanted to start a organic vegetable operation. Kept 100 for myself, enough for a small herd and a big garden. Used some of the money to fix up the house properly, the way Mom had always wanted. Put in new windows, updated the kitchen, built a sunroom on the back where you could watch the sun come up over the hills. The rest I put into a scholarship fund at the local high school, the Eleanor and Bill Morrison Agricultural Scholarship, for kids who want to stay in Merritt, who want to work the land their parents and grandparents worked. Kids who understand that sometimes the best life isn't the one that takes you farthest from home. I still get emails from David occasionally. Short ones, awkward. He asks about the farm. I answer, "We're not close. Maybe we never will be, but that's okay. Some bridges burn for a reason." Last spring, I was fixing the fence along the north pasture when a truck pulled up. David got out, looking uncertain. "Thought I'd drive through on my way to a conference in Calgary," he said. "Wondered if you wanted some help with that." I handed him the post hole digger. We worked in silence for an hour, falling into the old rhythm we'd had as kids. He didn't know what he was doing anymore. Kept hitting rocks, but he tried. When we finished, I made coffee on the porch. "The place looks good," David said. "Mom would have liked the sunroom." "Yeah." He stared into his cup. I read her letter. The last one. I read it a lot. What did it say? That she loved me. That she always would. That she hoped I was happy. He wiped his eyes. "And that she was proud of you. Proud of the man you'd become." We sat there as the sun went down, two old men on a porch their father built, drinking coffee, their mother's mugs. "I can't undo it," David said finally. "Any of it." "No, you can't. Can we start somewhere? Not where we left off, just somewhere new?" I thought about Mom's letters, about Dad waiting by the window, about all the years I'd been angry, and how that anger had just made me tired. "Maybe," I said. "But David, if you're going to be in my life, you have to actually be in it. Not just when it's convenient." "I know. I mean it. This isn't about the money. It was never about the money." "I know," he said again. "I'm trying to understand that now." He visits sometimes now. Every few months, he'll drive through. We don't talk about the old days much. Mostly, he helps with whatever needs doing, and we eat dinner, and he drives back to his life in the city. It's not the relationship Mom dreamed of, but it's something. And sometimes, when I'm working the land, I think about how things turned out. How justice doesn't always look like you expect. How sometimes the victory isn't in punishing someone, but in them finally understanding what they lost. David lost 20 years with our parents. Lost the chance to say goodbye. Lost the comfort of knowing he was there when they needed him. No amount of money would have given that back to him. And in the end, that realization was worth more than any inheritance. I'm 64 now. The farm runs smooth. The scholarship fund helps 3 kids a year. David sends Christmas cards with actual handwritten notes. It's not perfect, but it's honest. And late at night, when I sit in that sunroom and watch the stars come out over the Nicola Valley, I think Mom and Dad would say that's enough, that I did right by them, that the land they loved is in good hands. That's all any parent really wants, isn't it? To know their legacy lives on in the children who stayed.